I recently heard an interview with Michael Battle. Battle is an Anglican priest who, in addition to his other many accomplishments, served as chaplain to Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He's written a biography of Tutu that is specifically focused on Tutu's spirituality. In the preface to his book, Battle shares this insight about Desmond Tutu's rule of life. As an active bishop, Tutu kept a rigorous schedule. At 4 a.m, he would wake and then be on his knees in prayer for an hour. At 5:30, Tutu would walk and be silent. He would shower and be at his desk around 6, often reading, but also doing some desk work. At 7:45, there would be morning prayer, followed by the 8 o'clock Eucharist. Breakfast would come around 8:30. Then he would formally begin his day at 9. So he would essentially have 4 hours of silence at the beginning of each day. In the middle of the day, he would be back at chapel, then to a light lunch, then a siesta until 3. So he would spend another 2 hours in silence in the middle of the day. At the end of the day, he would spend half an hour in the chapel, then go to evening prayer. All told, each day would bring about 7 hours of silence with God. When Tutu was traveling, international organizations tried to pressure him to do things morning, noon, and night. John Allen, Tutu's longtime friend and communications director, would say to them, "What kind of Tutu do you want? And why did you invite him here?" Well, if you want him for his communicative skills, his ebullient personality, and that kind of thing in which he thrives in big groups, if you want that Tutu, you need to respect his need for chunks of silence. For Tutu, it was like two sides of a coin. If you want the spirituality and communication and ebullience, you need the other side, silence and contemplation and stillness with God. I thought of this as I read our gospel passage for today. Jesus has commissioned the disciples, and he sent them out 2 by 2. They have given their testimony, and they have cast out demons, and they have anointed the sick, healing them. That now the disciples have returned, and they are on fire. They are so excited about their missionary success. You can almost picture them talking over one another, the words pouring out of their mouths like a waterfall, wanting to share their stories and their experiences. With such success, they probably want to continue to strike while the iron is hot. Maybe their plan is to grab a quick bite and a bit of shut-eye and re-enter the fray. But before they can even complete their accounts, Jesus slows the pace. He quiets the din. He takes a deep breath and says to the disciples, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." Jesus had a full, productive ministry of healing, teaching, traveling, and sharing meals. And yet he regularly went off to a quiet place to rest in silence and solitude. Here, he begins to teach his disciples the importance of such a rhythm, a lesson that Desmond Tutu clearly took to heart and which formed him into the amazingly impactful and spiritual man that he became. It is a rhythm that Jesus desires for each of us. Several weeks ago, Ryan Waller spoke to us at Pub Theology on the subject of Christianity and mental health. And one of the points he made is that while we should absolutely utilize all of the tools available for healing our mental health and our anxiety, counseling, medication, lifestyle changes, we will only travel part of the journey toward wholeness if we don't also commit to doing our soul work, to growing our souls. When he was asked what specific steps we can take to grow our souls, the answer Waller gave was, slow down. We know this to be true. We feel it in our bones and in our psyche. The pace of life has become unsustainable. We are moving too fast, developing tunnel vision focused on what is right in front of us that clamors for our attention. We get to the end of our days and our weeks and our years, and we wonder what was accomplished that was of ultimate meaning, that has deepened and enriched our lives. The world will never encourage us to slow down, to quiet ourselves and rest with God. If we want to grow our souls, if we want to have the inner resources to meet the biggest challenges and questions in our lives, which will inevitably arrive, we will have to prioritize stillness and silence and solitude for ourselves. In stillness, we learn to stop doing, stop producing, stop pleasing people, stop entertaining ourselves, and stop obsessing. The pace of our life can keep us from honest self-reflection. Our unremitting activity can be a way for us to check out of life. Instead of using booze or sex or food or TV, we anesthetize with activity. The Chinese symbol for busyness consists of two characters, one meaning to kill and one meaning heart. The idea that our busyness is killing our heart is not just figurative. We see it in the myriad physical and mental health issues that arise from lives that are too driven, too stressful, too mortgaged to commitments and goals. In stillness, we become aware of just how restless we have become. We slow down and we focus on simply being instead of doing. Stillness is vital to the world of the soul. The story is told of a South American tribe that was on a long march, and after many days and many miles, they indicated that they would be making camp in their current spot for several days. When asked why, because they were still well short of their destination, they replied, "We have traveled so quickly and so far, we must allow our souls to catch up with us." Many of us miss out on ourselves completely as we journey through life because we never set aside times of stillness so that our souls can catch up with us. In our current culture, we have been trained to avoid silence. Many of us have some soundtrack running in the background of our lives practically all the time. We have the TV on at home, we have the radio on in our cars, we listen to podcasts when we're exercising. There is a connection between the amount of noise in our lives and our inability to hear God. In silence, our desire is to listen for God, to invite God to work within us that we might be transformed. And cultivating silence in our lives can be a means of becoming a better listener. With all of the sound and activity and data and warnings coming at us at all times, we've been forced to become selective listeners. When we incorporate silence into our lives, we will hear things we've never noticed before. And we will become better listeners to the people most important to us, to our own lives, and to God. In solitude, we are given the opportunity to know ourselves, to return to our true selves, as Richard Rohr describes, before we did anything wrong and before we did anything right. Solitude reveals to us the extent to which we are other-referenced, It's important to know who we are apart from the roles that we inhabit: spouse, child, parent, friend, colleague. We might have to ask, who am I apart from what I do and who I'm with? Solitude provides a space where we can make unexpected connections and experience the lightning bolt of inspiration. A regular practice of solitude helps us to stay centered so that when the big events come in our lives or that we must make difficult decisions, we can do so from a place of being grounded in our calling and in our life's purpose. The fruit of these disciplines of stillness and silence and solitude is love of God and love of others. It is to know ourselves more deeply. It is to grow our souls such that we become more and more the people God has created us to be. Jesus knew this. Desmond Tutu knew this. And clearly Isaiah knew this, for he tells us, "In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be your strength." Amen.